Tonight's presentation, From Overwhelm to Clarity, the keys to thriving with ADHD. The upcoming holidays can be overwhelming for anyone, but for those with ADHD, the season often amplifies stress, emotional highs, and energy crashes. Unrealistic expectations, shifting routines, constant demands can leave you feeling stretched thin and out of control. The good news is, there are ways to steady the swings and bring yourself back into balance. Tonight's speaker, Seth Rotman, is a board-certified nurse, coach, ADHD certified clinical provider, and international speaker with over a decade of clinical experience and powerful personal story. He helps professionals manage ADHD and executive function challenges through his signature 8DHD method, blending holistic coaching, neuroscience, and resilience building. And with that, I will be turning that over to Seth.
Thank you so much for that introduction. And I know that the idea of a board certified nurse coach can be confusing, especially because most people have never heard of it and have no idea what it is. So, just the quick rundown of what that is, it's pretty much taking a registered nurse, a holistic wellness coach, a life coach, and with what I do, an ADHD coach, and mashing that all into one ball and providing wellness and evidence based practice in a coaching setting. It provides really powerful results and incredible turnaround. Now, you know, the holidays are hard. There is no question about that. And when you have ADHD, tends to be harder than for the average person. There are more expectations. We feel that more. Holidays tend to not only be happy, but they also tend to come with feelings of grief and loss the older that we get. There can also be holiday trauma, unfortunately. And on top of all of us here having ADHD, there also tends to be seasonal depression. We have to deal with family dynamics. We all have those family members. There's relationships that we have to deal with. There's finances, that extra stress and pressure, plus changes in schedule, lack of sleep, travel. It's a lot. The holidays are a lot to deal with, even without anything extra being added in there. And when you have ADHD is hard on its own too. Brain fog, disorganization, internal and external chaos. We live in a reality that every day we wake up and go to bed with ADHD. There's no better. And when you carry that, you know, I know that it can feel like a lot. It can feel like one more drop in the bucket every day. And when you have all of these executive function issues that are kind of piling up, because no one has the same mix, right? Like what I struggle with is different than what anyone on this call struggles with in some variation. And that also comes with its own fun little magic mix in, the neuro bag, because ADHD unfortunately never kind of comes alone. It's always it's never in a vacuum. There's always some other neurodiversity in the mix with it. So even when we're addressing ADHD, we're never only addressing ADHD, and I think that's part of what gets lost in the conversation or gets overemphasized, where things kind of get blamed for as being ADHD when they're not, and that also becomes part of the problem. Now, with the holidays, we all have our favorite holiday recipes, right? I know if I asked everyone here, everyone would have a different answer. But when you mix the holidays and ADHD, it is a recipe for disaster, and that's a recipe that nobody wants. Now, really what ultimately makes the combination of ADHD and the holidays so difficult, when you break it down, is unrealistic expectations from others and from yourself. The fact that most of us are creatures of habit. I mean, even though, don't get me wrong, we all love our chaos that we create for ourselves, but the thing that tends to keep us going when we are successful is we find our routine, we find our groove, we make it happen, we stay with it. And during the holiday season, those routines get disrupted. Schedules change. Again, with travel, family coming over, it all changes. It kind of throws more chaos into the chaos. We're already impulsive. ADHD makes you impulsive. That's part of, you know, that dopamine chasing. And that impulsivity is encouraged to the max during the holiday season. Plus, you've got the lights, the music, the sounds. There is so much dopamine chasing that is going on. It brings you so high, it encourages so much. But when you go really high, you're going to crash really low afterwards. But then maybe you think of the perfect gift. Maybe you think of the perfect thing to do. You really want to make sure everyone notices the little things that you're doing, which pulls you into hyper focus, which is also exhausting on its own and is part of that dopamine chasing. But when it doesn't happen, or people aren't paying attention to you in the way that you feel, or you don't get the response that you want, you get put into these spirals of guilt and shame. And that guilt and shame kicks you into this whole other cycle. And there is a difference between guilt and shame. Guilt is that feeling of, I did something bad. I messed up. That was wrong. It's a pretty normal response. You you do something, you get that negative response, you realize, let me correct that. That feeling of guilt lets you course correct. Shame is the feeling, I am bad. That's the spiral that really pulls a lot of us down. That's really where a lot of times with ADHD, we get caught in that feeling of it being a personal failing. I know that for years I struggled with that feeling of it being a personal failing because I had teachers, I had family tell me that what I was doing was wrong. And so it wasn't the behaviors, it wasn't the forgetting things, it was me. I had to be the problem. And man, during the holidays, that just piles on, doesn't it? And this can come in more ways than usual during the holidays because maybe maybe money's tight and you can't travel or you can't get the gifts that you had thought you were going to. Now you don't get to see the family members that you were looking forward to seeing. You feel guilty for that. Or you don't get them the big gifts that you wanted to get them or as many. And you feel guilty for that. You know, it's okay that you don't get to be part of the holiday get together, but that's an average response to feel guilty. It's one that lets us try to change that behavior. And, you know, you can work on managing money differently for next year. That's a whole year to put those skills in place. That's a whole year to save up. Or maybe it's not your behavior that needs to change. Maybe you're in a position where travel is not an option. You can try and bring the family to you. But the other side is not where there's guilt, but it's where that shame comes in. It's that I messed up. I'm wrong for doing this. But there is a third option there where there's not guilt or shame. Maybe it's not so bad that you don't have to see your family. You know, they can try and guilt you, they can try and shame you. But instead of, oh no, I can't see my family, maybe it's, oh no, I can't see my family. I accidentally messed up the booking to Cancun and those pina coladas won't drink themselves. Oops. sometimes ADD does help you. It can't be all bad all the time. This is where it helps break that spiral. You're not a bad person. You're not, you know, horrible for not meeting other people's expectations. And how can it be horrible if other people are making you feel bad also? Are they taking your needs into consideration? If the expectation is that you only consider them and you're taking on all of the extra burden? Self-care is never being selfish. So hold on to that thought of those pina coladas. They're there for you. It's okay. And I know that I'm saying this casually. It's not easy because rejection sensitivity to dysphoria is real. It pulls you in. This is where you're worried about what everyone else is thinking, what you're thinking about yourself. All these demands and expectations are coming in from your job, from your family, from yourself, from the kids, every direction. And RSD is a really interesting area because it's not technically a symptom of ADHD, but it kind of becomes like a tag along syndrome. It's that emotional piece, that emotional dysregulation piece, but with every negative comment, all the negative feedback you've received your entire life, every time you've been told that you're wrong, every time um, that you're told that, you know, your behavior is inappropriate, every dirty look that you've perceived. So you've kind of been internalizing all of this your whole life, and now you assume that that rejection is coming and you brace for it and you're ready to snap back for it, or you just bring it down on yourself. So that rejection sensitivity, you're primed for that rejection, you're hypersensitive to it. And with that emotion out, that hyper emotion there, that rejection sensitivity is now dysphoric. It's those big ups and downs. You aren't able to, you know, manage that feeling of rejection really well, and it puts you also in a really interesting position because now your brain also, not only do you feel those cuts much deeper, but you tend to read things that are neutral as negative. So if you tell that family member or that friend, hey, I'm not going to be able to make it, and they respond, okay. Well, now you go into that spiral of, oh my God, they're so upset at me. They're so pissed. What do they mean by okay? It's like, they meant okay. You told them a thing, they affirmed it, but that rejection sensitivity reads that neutral statement as bad. So, you know, I know that a bunch of you are already probably thinking, I know all this. I live it. Why are you telling me all this? This is my everyday. This is overwhelming. We were promised clarity and answers. Don't worry, baby birds. I'm going to feed you. It's coming. Because there is good news. There are solutions here. This was laying the groundwork. And before we take that turn, I want to take a moment to kind of let everyone re-regulate. I want to start with square breathing. And if no one has done square breathing before, this is a simple breathing technique that we're going to do. But even though it's simple, that doesn't make it ineffective. This is actually a skill that special ops teams use to keep themselves down and regulated. So simple, but effective, especially under pressure. What I want everyone to do is take a moment, get comfortable where you are. What you're going to do, take a deep breath in through your nose for a 4 count. In, hold, 2, 3, 4. Blow out for 4. And hold for 4. Again, in 1, 2, 3, 4, hold 2, 3, 4, out 2, 3, 4, hold 2, 3, 4. One more time. In 2, 3, 4, hold 2, 3, 4, out 2, 3, 4, hold 2, 3, 4. Let go. How does everyone feel after just those couple breaths? You can put it in the chat. Bailey, I'm going to ask you to kind of let me know what the chat's saying.
Okay. Some of the bits are going slow, by the way. I can actually keep up. Great.
Good. Now, at the end of this, I do have one other super quick breathing technique that I'm going to share. It can feel a little complicated to learn. It's like a one breath, like super relaxer. It's one of those that if it works for you, it's fantastic. If it doesn't, that's okay. Don't worry. But we'll get to that at the end. Now, before we even get to anything else, to move away from the shame and doubt, to move away from all of those negative spirals, there are two words that I want you to move away from. I want you to try to take away the words just and should from your vocabulary. Those are two of the most harmful words that you use on a daily basis. When you tell yourself, I just need to get this done. I should have been able to handle that. I should just be there. These are words that close the door on conversation, but ramp up emotion. When you get rid of these words, you are able to open up that conversation with yourself, with others. Now you're able to answer the why. Now you're able to expand where you're actually wanting to go with this. I want to get to the gym. I'd like to get to the gym because it makes me feel better. That's a very different statement than I should have gone to the gym. And that's you can go even further. Because if you didn't get to the gym and you say, well, I should have gone to the gym. Well, I would have liked to go to the gym, but I was so tired. There was no way I could handle it. Okay, well, now you've been honest with yourself, and there's no shame in that. Because now not going was part of self-care, as opposed to shaming yourself only for not going. So you can see that as we remove these words, it improves the conversation. It improves the self-care. It moves us forward. And when you extend that out to how you speak to others, it has the same benefits. So it's really important that for everything else that we're going to talk about, if you can start by removing just and should from your daily vocabulary, everything else will have so much more impact. Now, this is where my ADHD model starts to really come in. And I'm going to talk about what I call the essential eights. And I call it my ADHD model because I named it after I kind of put it together, and it turned out that everything kind of ended up being a bunch of eights. And it's for ADHD. So, what can I do? It's a bad pun. Started with 8 being based on 8 weeks, but the essential eights are the 8 essential strengths that you develop with ADHD, the 8 essential skills that you need to develop those strengths, and the 8 essential tools. The kind of ironic thing about the ADHD model is that it's actually built on 3 pillars. So there's that. But those 3 pillars are accountability, knowing yourself, and resilience. Everything else comes from that. And the essential with the essential 8s, there are with the 8 essential strengths, I'm going to focus on 3 of the most relevant of each one tonight so that we don't get too in the weeds. But I kind of want to do a quick roll call of the strengths so that everyone can kind of be like, yeah, I see this in myself. I can see where this is going, so that as we go, kind of where we're going to lean on things and where you can lean. So you can put it in the chat. I know that a lot of us have cameras off. That's okay. So instead of raising your hands, please just put it in the chat, just like a thumbs up or an emoji, whatever response, whatever you want to do. So with ADHD, you can have that increased energy level, increased self-awareness, higher levels of creativity. That doesn't mean that you're an artist, but it means that you have a tendency to think of outside the box. Hyperfocus, yes, it can be a strength. It doesn't have to only wear you out. Increased risk tolerance. I'm not going to focus on that one tonight, but yes, it is a strength. Anecdotal communication. It is a strength. I know that it can annoy some people some of the time when they don't realize it's coming, but it is absolutely a strength. And what I call accordion thinking, it's that ability to see and understand the problem or the whatever project you're working on at that micro immediate level, but also be able to think and zoom out and see it from that 10,000 foot view and go back and forth between the two and deal with everything in between. It's also what makes you good in an emergency when you have ADHD. So the ones that I want to focus on really are increased energy, that increased self-awareness, and also that sorry, the ability to one, think outside the box, but also I just completely lost my train of thought because that's a thing that happens. So sorry, folks. Give me 1 sec to get my brain together. This is what happens when you have ADHD and you are speaking about ADHD.
Yeah, a lot of comments in the chat are agreeing about this. About losing their train of thought.
It happens, but okay. So this is I'm going to link this because these are those moments that honestly I used to be really embarrassed about, that I used to like, this is where I used to shrink. This is where I used to kind of fall apart because I would get really embarrassed and be like, this is where something's wrong with me. This is ADHD. This is me. This is the thing that my brain does. This is what happens. It's fine. We're all going to survive. I'm going to survive. Owning it, we're all moving on. It's okay. And with that, I'm going to take a drink of water and we're going to move on. And the train of thought is back. It's pulled back into the station. So, increased energy, increased self-awareness, hyper-focus, and I'm actually going to throw in the bonus because it's relevant now, resilience. Resilience is one of those strengths that comes with ADHD, because you are dealing with everything that comes with ADHD on a daily basis. The things that if you took someone who is not dealing with the daily struggle, because it is, even though it's not a struggle as much, it doesn't, the things that don't even seem like a struggle for us, if you took someone who is not dealing with what we deal with on a daily basis and dropped them in our brains and our bodies for 24 hours, they would fall apart. You are far more resilient than you realize because of how much you have learned to do and how much you have learned to bounce back from on a daily basis. The times that you crumble are because those things are actually much bigger than you realize. So ultimately, this does come down to self-management. And so when I'm talking about the skills and the goals, I am not talking about things that are big and fancy or wild. The skills are really, when I talk about knowing yourself, when this is a pillar, I mean, this is deep knowledge. This is the stuff that you get into. It's learning how to advocate for yourself. It is learning how to set boundaries. And yet, these are skills because you have to learn how to do these things. These aren't things that come naturally. And these are different from the goals, because the goals that I set out, these are things that these are things that you're working towards. They can kind of be, some of these can kind of fall into the skill category, but really their goals, and the three ones that really are important during the holidays are working towards mindfulness. And mindfulness is not meditation. I want to be very clear about that, because I know how many people are like, I can't meditate. That's fine. That square breathing that we did was mindfulness. You were aware of your breathing. You were intentional with it. That was mindfulness. Drive, not motivation, because I am sure everyone here has a hobby graveyard. That's motivation. It comes, it goes, it leaves. That's for motivation. Drive is you have a goal, and even when motivation leaves and things suck, you keep pushing towards it because you know motivation's going to come back and you want to achieve something. And maintaining accountability helps with drive. We all do better with an accountability buddy. Now, ultimately, when you master all 8 of everything, you do a much better job managing ADHD every day. That doesn't mean you're cured. That means you are kinder to yourself and you do a better job managing whatever symptoms you are dealing with day to day. You have better strategies in place. But instead of doing a deep dive there, let's get through the holidays first. Let's manage where this comes for you, and let's lean into how your strengths make you great in a crisis. One of my favorite personal stories for how this kind of came through for me, and I mean, this is kind of where, your brain can be in multiple places at once, and it can be amazing. We're coming up on Thanksgiving, which makes this story even better. Was one of the, I'm going to say, worst Thanksgivings that I ever had to deal with, but most insane. Maybe not worst, but most insane. So this is not my first time being a business owner. My first time was just after high school, and being in the medical field for so long, going into coaching now with ADHD, of course my first business was making gourmet hot sauce. Clearly, straight lines here. But I made the hot sauce in my parents' kitchen, which meant that I had to get the kitchen certified by the state. The date that the state set to come and certify the kitchen was the same date that my mother picked to do an early Thanksgiving dinner. She had asked my family to come later. She asked my grandmother for help getting the dinner made early. And we were making sure that my cousins who were flying in from Florida were going to be there on an earlier flight. My grandmother refused to help with the dinner early. My cousins showed up early, and the ones coming up from Florida had their flight rerouted to Newark. So my parents had to leave, leaving me as a teenager to deal with the inspection on my own. As they drove up to Newark, my cousins, who were elderly cousins, came in demanding fairly constant attention while I am now dealing with the state inspector. And I forgot the most important part of the story. My grandfather, who lived with us, was on his deathbed in the side room next to all of this, actively dying. So, grandfather on his deathbed, needy elderly cousins, grandmother who had originally said, nope, not helping with the dinner. And now the kitchen needs to be pristine for the inspection. And we are going. At this point, my grandmother, who had refused, goes to the basement to bring up the turkey and says, can I start now? No, of course you can't. Take it back downstairs. Cousins are now asking for drinks. Grandfather is dying. For the second time, grandmother tries to bring the turkey up. I send her back downstairs. Continuing with the inspection, cousins ask for a second drink. Grandfather's still dying. Grandmother comes up for a third time with a raw turkey during an inspection for food. Send her back downstairs. Cousins are okay. Grandfather is on his deathbed loudly at this point, and we finish the inspection. I am spent. I kindly offer the inspector a piece of cranberry bread that was freshly baked, and that is also how I learned that when you do that, that is considered a bribe for the state. So I got through it. You can manage. But it is one of those things that, without being able to split your brain, without being able to bounce around and handle the chaos, you're going to fall apart. This is where ADHD comes through. And with it, you handle it well. Honestly, this is also what has saved me through my career, through running codes, through saving lives. That was a start. This has been, part of it, but this is a strength that's available to everyone. And, one of the things that I really want everyone to understand is that when you start to identify your strengths, you can lean into them. When you identify your weaknesses, you can create strategies to avoid them. So one of the things that I want everyone to take away is that you can, for this holiday season especially, and in general, but especially to make it through the holidays, I want you to create a strengths and weaknesses map. Write out what you think all of your strengths are, the ones that you lean on, the things that you are good at that get you through your day. And I want you to write out your weaknesses. Time blindness, people pleasing, impulsivity. The things that, we struggle with. And then I want you to circle the two biggest weaknesses, the ones that come and bite you in the tail the hardest. And I want you to circle your two biggest strengths, the ones that you lean on all the time. And create two strategies for those two strengths so that you can lean on them the most, and create two strategies for how you can avoid or downplay those weaknesses. This is how you can start moving forward. This is how you can create that plan. And I want you to start setting boundaries. And boundaries aren't just for other people. Boundaries are for yourself too. These are the things that you say, I will do this, or I will not do this. And if you tell someone else that something is a boundary, it's a behavior that you will not accept from them. If you're setting a boundary for yourself, it is a behavior you will not accept from yourself. These are your hard lines you do not cross. But I really want you to remember, boundaries are not crossed. If you're soft on them, If you move, those aren't boundaries. Those are suggestions. We don't make suggestions when we're setting boundaries. Now, as things are changing through the holidays, like I said, we are creatures of habit. Please set a temporary holiday routine. Whatever you can do to be consistent while it's inconsistent. If you need to have lists, that's okay. If you're going to struggle with task paralysis, I have an answer for you there too. Now, I know I don't have slides with me. That's okay. Trust me. I have a friend with me. Now, one of the things that can help is an Eisenhower matrix. Now, this is not a traditional one. Traditional Eisenhower matrix is for management and delegation. This is my ADHD Eisenhower matrix. So you still have your high and low priority levels, but the way that I break it down is you have your urgent tasks and your important tasks. Now, these are time bound. The difference between urgent and important, your urgent tasks, these are the things that harm will occur in some way if these don't get done right away. Like if you don't pay that bill today or tomorrow, there will be financial harm. If you don't pay your rent, there will be harm. If you don't feed the cats, there will be harm. So something that will cause harm is urgent. Things that are important, things that don't cause harm immediately, but will eventually, if they're not done with it, over time. If you don't do the dishes today or tomorrow, it's not going to cause harm. If you don't do the dishes for a week, it will. So that's how those top two work. Your bottom is your nice to haves. So, once you check off these two, you have your nice to haves. Those are your extra tasks that you can throw in if you clear everything else. If you don't get to these, that's fine too. And anything that doesn't fall into these three goes into the fuck it bucket. It gets thrown out. Those are not important tasks. It's cluttering up your brain. It's cluttering up your list. Don't worry about it. It's done. Now, I know that it can still be difficult. If you have, let's say we've got, what I do, six, I did six squiggles. We've got six items in our urgent list. That can still be overwhelming, right? Especially if it turns out to be even more. One of my favorite tricks is dice. You number it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. You all get to see my beautiful handwriting. It's like calligraphy. And then you can use an app that's called Mighty Dice. It's free. I'm not promoting anything that's paid here. And what Mighty Dice is it's an app that uses tabletop dice, anything from a D4, so a four-sided dice, up to a D100. So however many tasks you have, you roll and let the dice decide where you're starting. Another option is one of my favorite ADHD apps for task organization is Noplex, which also, it has reminders, it helps you stay organized, it also has a randomizer. So if you can't pick, it can pick for you. And then, you keep moving forward with this. Make sure you make time for mental and physical self-care every day. That's not a sometimes thing. Remember, self-care is not selfish. And if you feel like you can't do it alone, that's normal. Have an accountability buddy. Get a coach. Get a community. You have a community here. But if this community isn't enough, Find more community. Find one that can meaningfully support you in the way that you need. So there are so many ways to move forward with this, even to only get through the holidays so that you can do it more meaningfully on the other side. Thank you guys so much. This has been really wonderful sharing this with you. And if anyone has questions, please